at their homework assignments are like, oh. Welcome, everyone, to the Fall Academic Assembly reception. I appreciate how busy everybody is, so I'm so grateful you all to be here. I'm Donna Cataldo. I am this year's Senate President and also the Chair of the University Academic Council. I want to go ahead and welcome some of our other campuses. We'll go ahead and please start a welcome to downtown Phoenix campus.
Thank you, Donna. I'm Robin Boniface. I'm the President of the Downtown Campus Academic Council, and I'm from the School of Social Work, and we're having a wonderful time down here at the Cronkite building. We're in the PBS studios. It's a beautiful room. We have a beautiful spread of food, and we're having great conversation.
Thank you, Robin. We'll go ahead and we'll welcome the West Campus, or pardon me, Polytechnic Campus. Polytechnic, are we okay? Are they still at the bar? Can you hear me in Poly? We okay? Maybe I'll move on to West Campus and we'll come back.
Right.
Do you hear us in Poly? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and we'll welcome West Campus, please.
Hi, I'm Owen Anderson, and I'm the president of the West Campus Faculty Assembly. I'm glad we could be here today.
Thank you, Owen. We'll cut to Tempe campus, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Joan McGregor. I'm the president of the assembly here in Tempe, and I welcome everybody today. I'm a professor of philosophy and glad to be your president this year.
Thank you. And do we have our Polytechnic campus with us? Are all the engineers here in the room with us? Did all the engineers leave? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and start. All right, we'll give them a moment to chat. So this means you have an opportunity to browse back through the dessert section. Everything looks delicious. All right, it looks like we have Polytechnic. Igor, can you hear us? I don't have Igor's. Just their connectivity. I think their connectivity. Yeah. So they rebooted everything, but we'll see. They rebooted everything, so we'll see. I don't think they can hear us. Well, thank you everyone for your patience. Not that Polytechnic campus isn't a big part of our ASU program, our ASU family and our academic assembly, but I think there's a ghost in the machine, and they're probably going to troubleshoot it for a little bit longer, so I apologize. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and get started. And I do appreciate sincerely how busy the beginning of fall semester is, and that probably each and every one of us here and across all the academic assembly are thinking about our teaching, our research, and our service components. That being said, I would ask you, though, to kind of pause for a second, because this beginning of semester is always so busy, but pause for a minute and consider your colleagues here, you know, that are at the different events, and your colleagues that are also in your colleges. And that being said, we're also so fortunate that we are a growing and diverse faculty, and that some of these faculty are new, and this is their first semester here. Some of you are probably working on your promotion tenure packets and thinking about those. And then some of you have also taken on new coursework, and you're trying to create a dynamic program of studies so as to challenge the expectations and needs of our new learners. That being said, we all have great experiences and great qualities that we can share with each other. And we are 3,500 strong. And again, we all have something very positive to offer to one another to help promote and support each other. And so I would ask you to at least start to consider, what can you do to help your peers, help your colleagues, you know, how can you support them and promote them to do well? And I would say that the best way to know our faculty members and what they need is through communication. And through that, we just really need to ask and listen. For instance, I'm in the College of Health Solutions, and our KIN program, through regular communication and a few social outings, helped one of our new faculty consider where to live, met one-on-one with them, provided the content that they needed for their courses, and ensured that they had support by helping to recruit a new student teacher to help them get the support they need for the semester. And honestly, coming from a small Midwest college to ASU is a big change. And we do this, you know, the same thing with our research faculty. We have so many great corporate alliances and clinical alliances. We also want to support them by introducing them to all those partnerships so that they can continue to be successful in their research endeavors. They want our new faculty member to be supported and successful, making sure they have everything they need. The power of that program is their faculty, who can come together and help each other. And the power of this faculty, our academic assembly, is the 3,500 member strong group that we are. So if you consider it, you see that the Senate structure and the academic assembly that has been established is in some sense very much like that program that provides the tools and resources that we all need to be successful. The difference is we're just doing it at the institutional level. Okay? The spirit is not any different. Faculty working together to help one another, whether it's at the program level or the Senate level. And honestly, the only way this can work is if all the faculty voices are heard. So, here are the few initiatives that the Senate's working on based on what we've heard from you all. We're currently working with our leadership to increase faculty salaries to at least above half of what our ABOR-approved university peers are. We've heard the needs of increasing lactation rooms from our faculty, so we're working on increasing lactation rooms on all of the 4 campuses as well. And we also know we're all super sensitive about academic integrity, and a Senate-led initiative helped to ensure that we have online proctoring for all of our math placement exams. So, one of my great privileges thus far has been to visit some of the campuses, and you won't be surprised to hear that a lot of the concerns that I hear are all the same. Each campus has a unique personality, but the faculty are all fantastic, and we all have similar needs and concerns. Okay. Again, the power of our academic assembly is derived from a consensus of our 3,500 member-strong faculty. But a key challenge to consensus building requires great communication. So my priority this year is to enhance the communication so that we can accurately echo your voices. So, if you have any ideas, talk to your senators, talk to your campus presidents, or talk to me so that we can put those thoughts into action, okay? And that will help keep ASU being a leader in research innovation and teaching excellence. So speaking of excellence, let's go ahead, and I would love to introduce our president, Michael Crow, for ASU. Thank you, guys. Have a great fall semester.
Thank you, Professor Cataldo, and thank you to all of you, as she said, for taking time out of the start of the semester with 110 degrees yesterday, and I almost never let the heat affect me, but I was on a number of walks yesterday outside, and I was like, it might actually be hot here. There's some chance that it might be hot. And did I remember my sunscreen? And which I did. As my dermatologist says, an old man like you better be wearing sunscreen every day because it's just waiting to get you. Oh, thank you. And so let me start off by just saying thank you to all of you. We do know a lot about the academic year that ended June 30th because we kind of work on the July 1 to June 30th calendar. And as I said to you, for the last several years, whatever record we had hit in the past, I said this last year, the year before, and the year before, we surpassed it. And that is again the case this year, but even more so. To some extent, we're not exactly sure what's happening. The institution is performing at, from a student perspective, at an unbelievable level. It's performing from a faculty achievement level at an unbelievable level, all levels. Let me just walk you through some of the numbers before I go to my presentation, and then hopefully we'll have time for comments and questions as we usually do at the end. We raised formally and reportably $253 million in fundraising last year. That is a record year for the institution. 3 $200 million years in a row. We've never, ever achieved anything like that. We haven't announced this yet, but we will, that we've already exceeded $1.5 billion in our campaign. These were considered impossible achievements, and we still have 2 years left on the campaign, so we're very excited about where we are. We have already exceeded our goal within the campaign and are still moving forward for funding, in particular for scholarships for our students. That's been a huge hundreds of millions of dollars contributed to the institution for scholarships for our students. All kinds of activities, new investors, new programs. We've got big announcements coming up in the next few weeks, the naming of a college from a foundational donor, which we haven't announced yet. These are all things that are happening. So these are big, big, big deals, and they're a function of the hard work of you all on the faculty and the deans and the unit development officers and all the people that are out there working, so that's gone really well. We just opened for a freshman class last week. So remember, we get first-time, full-time freshmen on campus. I'm speaking on campus now. We get transfer students on campus. We get new graduate students on campus. Between the three of those, it's more than 20,000 new on-campus students arriving here who have never been here before, never been a part of us before, and they're new members of our community. So just imagine 20,000 newbies showing up who are like, man, it's hot. And so 12,000, more than 12,700 first-time, full-time freshmen. This is an unbelievable achievement, about half white, half non-white. This is unbelievable diversity, ethnic diversity, unbelievable diversity from a socioeconomic perspective, but size is important. That means then that kids who normally wouldn't come to college, who are fully qualified to come to college, from families and backgrounds that aren't sending their family members to college, are now finding us, and I'm going to show you what that number looks like in terms of first-generation students. And so fundraising, record, freshman class, record, Student enrollment record. So they're out in Missouri. Anybody from Missouri? Yeah. So my dad's family. I'm the only person in the descendant side of my father's family who hasn't lived in Missouri for 200 years. I consider myself lucky. And so I'm joking to people from Missouri that are watching on these cameras. They don't take jokes very well there. And so it's sort of a joke. And so schools are having trouble with their enrollment. They're having trouble filling their freshman class. It turns out that demand for our services is fluctuating. Not here. Not here. We have students from all 50 states. We have students from every state of Mexico. We have students on campus from, I think, 138 countries or 136 countries. This is unbelievable demand. We have even, this has surprised us. So we have just under 1,000 freshmen online. They're older, 25, didn't have a chance to go to college, went into the military, started working, worked for their family, whatever. We have 1,000 freshmen, first-time freshmen online. We have 3,000 students now who aren't qualified to attend ASU, but have drive and grit and ambition, and we found a pathway for them. They all work for Starbucks. 3,000 people. This is in addition to the 7,000 Starbucks partners who are our online degree-seeking students. 3,000 more can't be admitted to ASU because they didn't generate the qualifications. We now have a pathway for them to move into the university by taking courses from our Global Freshman Academy. This is like unbelievable. So whatever happened to them along the way, they now are proving, we call it, they're taking a 400-hour AP test. They're taking full courses, moving forward with these full courses, demonstrating their ability to be a college-level student, and so they're coming through and they're moving forward. We do know that we'll have, including online, 17,000 transfer students from community colleges this year. 17,000. And they are actually highly overrepresentative of families from lower income situations. So we are attaining the design parameters that we intended the university to attain. A class representative of the full socioeconomic diversity, attracted to a faculty operating at the highest level of competitiveness. One measure of that competitiveness, and I have a slide for that in a second, is that we broke a threshold record that even surprised us. So our research expenditures, as reported to the National Science Foundation in the last year, through what's called the NSF HERD process, the Higher Education Research and Development Accounting process, we will report a number above $600 million in expenditures for the last year. This is an unbelievable achievement. There are, on the planet, 7 or fewer universities at that level of funding that don't have a medical school on the entire planet. More than 2,000 of our faculty are participating in those funded research activities, and the other faculty are participating in other research and creative faculty activities that don't necessarily provide external funding. But this is an unbelievable achievement for our faculty. I can't even begin to tell you all the things that our faculty have been doing and winning and achieving and teams that are being built and so forth. So whatever the numbers are, faculty achievement, student achievement, diversity achievement, fundraising, megawatts consumed to air condition the school, repair after 3.6 inches of rain fell on campus in 30 minutes a few days ago, damage on campus A, damage on campus B, damage on campus C, all records. And so we're very happy about those achievements. And so I just want to say thank you for that. Now, what I want to do, if I can get the slides to come up, I want to show something to you, and I don't want you to be startled by this. Just think of this as, you know, what college presidents do in their spare time. They think about what kind of institution are we. So you all probably think that we're an institution that's the academy model. Well, we are a type of academy model. An academy model is generally a smaller college. Animating purpose is the enlightenment of individual students. So we calculated today to build enough academy model colleges and universities in the United States like Bowdoin and Oberlin and Colorado College and Pomona and Pitzer and schools like that, we need 14,000 more. Not 1,400, 14,000 more. It is not likely that 14,000 more of these colleges will be built, and, by the way, they cost, per student, 5 times what we cost. 5 times. They, therefore, do not scale, cannot be built, are not replicable, are very good at what they do, but it's not our path. The second gold little circle over there is the model that universities operate when they're managed like a bureaucracy. So that's what we used to be. Survival of the institution is the most important thing. When I arrived to my desk 16 years ago, all people talked about were politics. That's all they talked about. How much was the legislature going to give us? Well, they don't give us enough now, they don't invest enough in us now, but that's all anyone talked about. And we have moved well past that. We'll send this out so everybody can take a look at it and offer comments or critiques of this. This is just some thinking. The blue one, the market model, what's an example? Who wants to tell me an example of a what? Well, University of Phoenix. Yeah, so the market. So what's the objective? Profit, maximization, and shareholder return. It's a corporation. What other objective could it have? And so then there's another one at the end. Call that ASU as a prototype. A different model, what we're calling the enterprise model, the public enterprise model, using some of the green and some of the yellow and some of the blue, and coming up with a different animating purpose. So our animating purpose is social transformation. That doesn't mean that we don't enlighten individual students. It means that we have figured out how to enlighten individual students from every family background imaginable, including whether or not they have money or not, at scale. That's a very different approach to things, without large levels of political interference from the gold column. And so, just to give you some sense of how we're evolving as an institution. Now, around the country, governors, including Arizona, state leadership, business communities have set what are called educational attainment goals. And these are goals being set by every state because every state believes that they're not educating enough of their population at a high enough level to be as competitive as they need to be. So they basically said, I'll pick a state like Utah. So Utah, 66%. So what that means, just to read the statistic. So Utah has decided that they need 90% high school graduation rate and 66% of the high school by age 18, and then 66% go on to some kind of post-secondary thing, community college, technical school, or bachelor's degree. Arizona set theirs at 60, Colorado at 66, Texas has set theirs at 60 by 2030. The outlier there is South Carolina, 29. That doesn't mean they're, South Carolina's, funny to begin with, but it's 29% bachelor's degrees, and so it's just the only thing that they set. The other states are somewhere between 29, 30, 33, 35, 37% bachelor's degrees, so it's a good number for South Carolina overall. Now, what this means then is, I ask you, how do we achieve these numbers? If the 1 million students per year that drop out of high school, if 800,000 more of them decide to go to college, how would you like them to go to college? Where will they go to college? What will they do? And some will go to community college, some will go to technical school, some will come to the university. So the notion of dealing with educational attainment for larger numbers is a mission that we're taking on. So everybody knows our charter. Our charter is not infinitely scalable, but it is what it is. We will measure ourselves based on who we include versus who we exclude and how they succeed. We will carry out research to benefit the public of public value, and we will take responsibility for the outcome of our community. I thought I saw Libby Wentz, Dean Wentz. Is she still here? I know she was here earlier. So she just won a $15 million grant. I can't tell you the whole detail yet, but a $15 million project as a seed project to allow us in this bottom area of responsibility to take on the notion of how do we make this place called Maricopa County, which is 4.2 million people, the fourth most populated county in the United States. It's the size of the state of New Jersey, this county, with 4.2 million people. It's unbelievably complicated. It has the largest nuclear power plant in the United States in it, cooled by wastewater from the city of Phoenix. It has unbelievable complexity at every level. How do you build resilience as a community objective for this county? How do we get rid of these ozone alerts like we're going through 41 days in a row? How do we ensure water supply and water future and this and this? I won't walk you through it, but what it means then to take on responsibility, it means to take on responsibility. The 4.2 million people that live here that will grow probably to 6 or 6.5 million in the present planning horizons. So the county's population is already larger than the Republic of Ireland. And we're it. And we're taking responsibility. That means we have to work towards these kinds of objectives. And so that's what I mean by things that we're doing relative to our institutional design. So you're all sick of this. We're not quite sick of it yet. We don't know if we can keep winning it forever. So, you know, next year or whenever when we don't win it and they say, well, it's time to get rid of Crow. Maybe. Point being, we're not number one in innovation because somehow we set out to win a contest. MIT is on the list because they built edX and a range of other things, OpenCourseWare, and they're operating on a global scale. And Stanford produced Coursera and all kinds of other things, Udacity, all these other ways to educate at scale. We're on this because of what we have done to take the student body that we have and to advance with a 95% four-year graduation rate improvement. We now have the #1 four-year graduation rate of any university that still admits B students in addition to the normal A students that come to a research university. So some research universities, Purdue, Michigan State, Iowa State, Oregon State, these land grants, they still admit B students, as do we, when we now have the top four-year graduation rate among those schools. And we listed a few other has-beens. Again, in this particular arena, this is a fair and even contest. Now, I want you to understand our assignment. This is a negotiated public policy outcome of our relationship with the Arizona Board of Regents, the 9 people that I report to, who are citizens. I tell this to my European university friends all the time. They say, well, what minister do you report to? Well, I don't report to a minister. What do you mean? I said, it doesn't work that way. I report to the rough equivalent of a revolutionary committee of citizens. No, it's almost French Revolution stuff. A French revolutionary committee of citizens who appoint the president of the university with advice from everybody else. They could meet by phone later today in sayonara. But they give us assignments. So gold is us, blue is the U of A, and green is NAU. You can see the categories. Share of total enrollment, which means are you servicing the public? Share of high demand degrees, nursing, science, engineering, teaching. Research expenditures, and share of total degrees. So what does this tell you? Who got the assignment? I'm not sure what the others were assigned. And they know I think that. So we got the assignment because we said we could be adaptable, flexible, operate on multiple campuses. As we heard from Donna, we have a fantastic faculty of 3,600 people operating on all these campuses. We've got 2,000 faculty members that are trained up in enhancements of technologically based education. We've got 175 online degree programs. We've got unbelievable on-campus programs. We have unbelievable Dean of Student Services across all of our campuses. It's remarkable what's going on. So they say, can you carry the load? And the answer is, we can, and we have to, and we will, and we have to make it work. Now, the complexity is that in the past, when universities were scaling up like this in the 1960s, it was all paid for by the taxpayer. All of it. I can guarantee you, having been in this job for a while, that would have been a simple life. You go over to the Capitol, you talk to people, they say, there's more kids coming to college. You say yes. They say, okay, here's more money. You go back to the university and you say to the chemistry department or the English department or the art school, hire more faculty. They hire the faculty, the kids show up, you go back to the Capitol, you ask for more money, they give you money, and then you say, I need some more buildings, and then they say, okay, we'll give you the new buildings. We don't have any of that. At the moment, we have no funding model from the state. Just let that sink in again. We have no funding model. We have money, but no model. They're generous, but not enough. And so what we are saying to them is, we can do this, but we need you to invest half of the cost of education for an in-state student, roughly $8,000. They're not investing $8,000, quite a bit less than that, half of that. And we say, if you do that, you don't have to give us anything else. We'll manage everything else there is to manage. Now, we don't yet have them believing us. And we have another problem. As society has decided to equate ideology with many other things that it was never equated to before, we find ourselves in the following situation. Registered Republicans in the United States, based on recent polling data, say, about 70% of them, that they're not sure that universities are of the value that they have been in the past. That's a big deal. But the reason is perceptions of ideological differences, perceptions of the lack of free speech. Not true at this institution, true at some institutions. You can see where some of this comes from. But nonetheless, that's a very, very big shift, particularly for Republicans, who in past polls over many decades were strong supporters of universities. And on Democrats, I'm just talking about people registered as Democrats coming out of very significant Gallup polling data and Pew polling data. The number one issue among all issues associated with education, and education is in the top 4 issues for Democrats, the number one issue for education is the cost of tuition. Now, we didn't raise our in-state tuition costs last year, costing the institution millions of dollars of revenue, not being made up as it is in other states by state appropriations. We decided to find other revenue, find other ways to manage our costs, find other ways to advance the institution. But I'm just telling you that we have this assignment, and let me make sure that everyone understands this. It is our assignment. The only people that are going to figure this out are us here. The legislature, we will eventually convince to make additional investments. But even when they do, they won't be the way any university was funded or created in the past. We have to move forward in new ways. I've said that before, and that's just to reiterate it. So this is letting you know. So this is every research university that's called Very High Research University in the United States. Every dollar that those universities get from tuition resources and state appropriations divided by the number of graduates, which then produces a very difficult number to understand called the cost per degree. Now, it's not the actual literal cost. It's every dollar of state appropriation, every dollar of tuition. How many people did you produce? You can see that we're on the right side of the equation. I've listed all the other Pac-12 schools. You can see UCLA there, very far to the left. You can see the U of A there. You can see where we are. This is what we use to say to people, please stop talking to us about how inefficient we are. Talk to everyone to the left of us. We don't really want to hear that anymore. We have lowered the cost to the state to produce a degree by 75% to the state. Now, that's because they don't give us much money, and we produce many more degrees, but nonetheless, it's still the equation. Now, going forward, this is enrollment by category 2003 through after 2020, and all I want you to see is the slope. These are different types of students, international students, in-state students. We'll get you this so you can look at this in more detail. So Donna will send it out through you or whoever, or through Mark and Donna to the entire faculty, just to take a look at these things. And so basically what you can see, the squiggly lines, which are hard to see, is the online stuff. We have huge uptick in our online students, but what you're going to see happening here is dramatic further evolution of the institution in terms of diversity, scale, impact, and so forth, with lots of things happening on the Polytechnic campus and the West campus, particularly in terms of immersion campus growth. Now, you've seen this chart before, but I want to reiterate it again, and it's even more acute for the fall of 18. This is the income distribution for the freshman class. So the last category to the left are families with, well, you can see the second category is 20 to 40K, so the last category would be families with less than $20,000 of income. That actually is the second largest category of students for the freshman class. Between those at 40K and below, those two are huge. I mean, so look what we've done. So gray is the class in 2002. Gold is the class in 2017. I don't have the data for 2018. What does this tell you? We grew the class. We enhanced access. We shifted the income profile of the freshman class. Now, by the way, when I say this, there's a team in our enrollment management division led by the provost and by Vice President Kent Hopkins. Unbelievable. How do you find the talented, gifted, capable students at all income levels and get them to the university without a financial barrier? At scale. With no state financial aid. It's easy to do in Georgia or Illinois or California where there's large state resources invested in financial aid. We don't have any state financial aid to speak of. So let me show you that. So this is the chart. So family incomes, far left blue is under 20,000. You can see the incomes running across the bottom. You can see the median or average net tuition, $2,300, and including work study, it's $2,200 for all of our undergraduate students. Blue, that's what you all give up in university resources for university financial aid grants. Green is the federal Pell Grants. Orange is state gift aid. You can see that's massive. And then you can see institutional, you can see private external gift aid is the gray, or the purplish gray. Now, what does this say to you? We have a fantastic array of support for students from various income families, various income categories per family, and we have a fantastic outcome in terms of trying to keep the cost of attendance as close to free as possible. So certain politicians who have taken brickbats to the institution or 2x4s up to the side of our head saying that we're not really accessible, they haven't spent enough time looking at the details of the data behind this chart. Now, this is a chart that you should all be proud of as faculty members. So in 2002, we had about 7,000 first-generation students at ASU. And in 2017, the last year, we had more than 21,000. That's a threefold increase in first-generation college students. It's even higher this year. Now, what does this tell you? It's a tremendous transformation in the ability of the institution to reach out and empower and enable really talented kids from any family. This, by the way, is not a random thing. It's not like all of a sudden we said, you can't just say, well, everybody that's out there that wants to come to college that comes from a family where no one's ever been to college, or from a family where no one's ever graduated from high school, or a family where no one's been to college that has no active parent. We have many kids who come from families with no parents. You think they're in foster care. They're not in foster care. We have kids living in buses in river bottoms, going to homeless high schools with 1,500 SAT scores, because I've met them and talked to them. It's hard for me to project to you the variety of students that we have attending the institution. I was talking to this brilliant young woman last year, nursing student, 4.0 grade point. She was on an Obama scholarship from a very poor family, and she said she was also working 40 hours a week. She's the main breadwinner for her mother, who's disabled, while doing all the other things that she's doing. And she was one of the smartest people. You can tell instantly how smart someone is. She was one of the smartest people I've ever met. And so I can guarantee you that the breadth of our students, I think we're about to report that we have 3,000 Native American students attending the university this semester. 3,000. From 225 Native American tribes. There's only 21 tribes, 22 tribes in Arizona. Where do the other 200 come from? All over the country, because they know that they can find access to an environment in which they can be successful here. Now, I pick up engineering not because I'm a freak of engineers. I know we have some engineers here. I see a few out in the audience. I see one of our vice deans. I see some others. And so this is the growth of the engineering school from 2007 till now. 8,000 students on campus to, I think this has both on campus and online, but to about 18,000 on campus this semester and about 4,000 more online. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of more women and more minority students in engineering than there were in 2008. And our retention rate is just a hair under 90%, right at 90%. And so we've also seen dramatic changes. So the point is that the institution can adjust, can redesign, can scale, can diversify, can do all the things that the rest of the world spend a lot of time talking about. We tend to spend a lot of time doing about. And so that's degrees granted. This is an important chart. This is freshman retention, which is the best predictor of graduation. Do you make it through the freshman year? Top line are students from Arizona, and bottom line are students from all students. This is tremendous improvement. And then Provost Searle, we don't know where we're going to end up yet for the year ending, but higher than where we are. 85.6, 85.5. These are tremendous improvements, particularly at our scale and at our diversity. This is our 4-year graduation, 5-year and 6-year graduation rate improvement. Just look at the slope of the line. We list the other schools on the right. So why does why does Oregon State have a 34% 4-year graduation rate? It's a great school. It's because it's hard. Turns out there's actually work involved in educating students who are not pre-selected with a 100% probability of graduation for your freshman class. Turns out if you pre-select for high school graduation, for college graduation potential, you don't have to worry about graduation rate. There's a lot of schools that just pre-select. We don't. This is the research change from FY98 going forward. The number we're showing at above 600. The two lines are goal versus what was attained. This is an unbelievable achievement. Thousands of projects, thousands of faculty members and staff involved, tens of thousands of students involved. And we're designing right now the largest research building that we've ever built that will go where Taco America used to be and the car wash at University and Rural. The largest building that we've ever built. And Biodesign C is now complete and open. We have a new research and innovation building going up at the Mayo Hospital. We have a new research building being built on the downtown campus with private sector partners that will provide more than 100,000 square feet. We're renting a big part of the TGen building now in downtown Phoenix. So from a research capacity perspective and a research facilitation perspective, we're moving things forward in significant ways. Now, all I want you to see, because I get so sick of this, I get so sick of people saying, well, you know, ASU, you're not really a research university. Okay, so I'm going to just flash into your mind, almost through subliminal communication. You won't even know when you're dreaming later tonight what it meant. If you see a logo on here, it means we beat them. And it's not everybody that we beat, it's just ones in particular that I like to gig. So in anthropology, by the way, so anybody here from the School for Human Evolution and Social Change? Yes? So it used to be a department of anthropology. We made a change. I got labeled a thug in a suit for some of my thinking on that. I'm not really a thug. I'm not really sure what that meant. But nonetheless, here we are today, measured by the National Science Foundation, #1 in research funding for everybody that's in the anthropology business, ahead of Michigan, Harvard, and Stanford. So I'm not going to walk you through all these, but I'm going to pick a few. Social sciences, humanities, political science. So if you see the word of the title of the subject, according to NSF's classification, and you see a logo, you beat them. So just get this into your head. So NASA funding. Who would have thought that we had more NASA funding? We had the NASA administrator on campus yesterday, had a fantastic meeting, several members of Congress here, fantastic meeting with the new NASA administrator and all the things that he's trying to do and all the things that he's trying to achieve. But who would have thought that we had more NASA funding than Stanford, Georgia Tech, UCLA, or that loser Columbia? Or who? But let's get to something like engineering. This is according to the National Science Foundation, not according to us. Ahead of schools like Caltech and Cornell. But forget that. Take a look at the top one. NSF funding. 23rd, and NSF funded over 700 schools last year, 2 years ago, 2016. NSF funding, 23rd. So that means we have more NSF funding than those 4 middle brand schools. Nobody, like I'll show these slides to people and they say, he's a liar. Actually, I didn't produce the data. So over to the west of us is a whole series of big research universities called the University of California. So I'm going to fly you through these. So if you see a UC logo on here with the exact same questions, it means they lost. So let's take a look at, let me pick a couple of these. Oh, humanities. Not too bad, Berkeley. Engineering, not too bad. HHS funding. Now, we don't have a medical school, so we didn't beat everybody, but we beat Santa Barbara. But I like this one, NSF. So that's looking pretty good. And then NASA, that looks pretty good. Department of Defense, you might not like that we're doing a lot of Department of Defense work, but some of your colleagues are. That's pretty good. And so again, this was just meant to sort of let you know. Now, a logical shift that we're going through, and I apologize for the time today, but a logical shift. So let's assume that pre-K through K-12 is preparation to be a learner, and that you're going to spend the rest of your life as a learner. So we went ahead and trademarked the term universal learner. We now own that. It's only like $50. And we're paying a few shekels to some lawyers to get universal learning. So we're going to own that. And what are we trying to do? What we're trying to do is we're saying that basically, once you're prepared to learn after high school, universal learner is what you're going to be if you're going to be successful in this society. And we're going to find a way to be engaged with you, whether you come to see us as an 18-year-old in full immersion, or a 24-year-old as a graduate student, or a 24-year-old as an online freshman, or a 30-year-old as an online master's student, or a 40-year-old trying to pick up some courses, or a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old, or if you've seen the 2 cranes down on University, you may not know what that is the world's coolest old person dorm. And it's called Mirabella. It's a joint project with our ASU enterprise partners and a fantastic firm for 350 families that will live in there, or couples that will live in there, that will be in some stage of phased retirement in a lifelong learning smorgasbord extravaganza. And so lifelong learning will be at all levels. That's going to be a 20-story building when done, 4 restaurants, underground parking. And based on data, we think 15% of them will leave us their apartments when they die. No joke. We've already talked to most of them. We've already got some of them. But why do they want to be here? Why would you want to be in there? We have a number of faculty members that have, or former faculty members that have bought some of these apartments in that building that'll be open soon. Because you want to be around what we do. You want to be around learning. You want to be engaged. You want to teach. You want to mentor. You want to have your life continue to evolve. Well, that's what lifelong learning means. So, universal learning for us will mean evolving the institution, not to change what you all do. We're not going to change that. We are going to change with what you do, who we can touch with it. So we have, I don't know, thousands of online courses now, thousands. Tens of thousands of online tools from those courses. Hundreds of thousands of mechanisms. 5 million objects in our library. Art collections, music collections, historical collections. What can we do with all of that to be more democratic? It doesn't take anything away from you all, or your students here with you. It doesn't take anything away from the graduate students that you're working with. It's all in the form of a public good. So how do we intensify the public good character of the institution? So, that's my update on where we are, and I'd be open to any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Crowe. Wonderful. All positive information. Do you have time for a
Yeah, I have time. Yep, if we go quickly. I'm going with a couple of people to meet with the student body elected leaders at the TGIF restaurant at the Diamondbacks game, where we will receive what they've been working on all summer, which is their desired changes in the university, their recommendations of what they think we should be doing. And we've been getting fantastic recommendations from students. And so every year about this week, we meet at the Diamondbacks game and we eat fried food that you're not supposed to eat, and then watch the Diamondbacks win, but we really receive these issues from the students. So, yes.
Thank you. We'll start with the downtown Phoenix campus. Do you have a question to start for?
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
Thank you. First of all, President Crowe, thank you so much for your presentation. That was very interesting and encouraging, what's happening here at ASU. Our question relates to a different set of data. We first want to thank you for your recent response to the UAC's interest in assuring ASU faculty salaries are comparable to other Pac-12 universities. The data on mean faculty salaries is very encouraging, and we appreciate your commitment to offer competitive salaries to new assistant professors. However, mean salary data can mask large discrepancies among equally ranked faculty in the same unit. For example, the mean salary for full professors at ASU is about $140K, yet there can be a $40K to $50K variance from the mean. And in some cases, the most productive professors are the ones on the lowest paid category. So we were wondering what strategies are being considered to address the issue of salary compression.
Right, so that's a very good question. The provost and I and his team worked on the overall faculty salary survey that we did. We wanted to make sure that we did it in the context of also cost of living, because if you compare our faculty to the Berkeley faculty or our faculty to the UCLA faculty in those metropolitan areas, the cost of living is just much higher. But having said that, your point is also good. So we think that in general, we're doing okay and making progress. We're not where we would like to be. So from an overall strategic perspective, the university is building into its budget a modest number that we believe that we can contribute to a salary pool going forward on an annual basis. And then we are empowering the units, the college-level units and the school-level units, with incentives and other mechanisms to further increase that general salary number. As to the specific point that you make about people that might be inverted in salary, or they might be outperforming, they've been here for a long time, new people came in at higher salaries, they're still carrying their load, but the new people came in under a different market condition. I have said to the provost, I'll say again, I'll say to all of you, we're prepared to look at all of those cases when a systematic presentation is made relative to something other than a generality, meaning it's got to be a specific proposal for a specific individual or set of individuals in a specific unit that then clearly illustrates where we have a problem. Then if we have that problem, and we can't always see that problem because we don't have all of the information on the performance of every individual, we will make resources available to remedy that problem. If there are inequities, unfairness, things that are historical artifacts, which are different than a person's performance. And so there may be some people whose performance has not been at a level that everybody would like it to be at, and maybe their salary didn't increase at the high rate of someone else. But if there's a market gap, we're going to address a market gap. If there's an inequity based on anything, gender, anything, if we can see the inequity, we will remedy the inequity immediately. Now, they're not always easy to see. You might think they're easy to see, but they're not. It really takes unit-level analysis. Mark, I don't know if you want to add to that. Maybe they can't hear you, but did I cover it? Or Provost Searle is going to come to the microphone and comment.
I think you answered it fully, and I think that it is a complex issue. We've tried this a number of years ago, and then the recession kind of intervened. But I think we would be happy to engage this conversation if we can get the kind of data that we need. And performance and some of these other things are complex to really assess. But
right.
Happy to engage it.
I can say that I learned long ago, painfully, watching the fact how much bias there is in systems around gender, in particularly in the past, and you know, in need of constant attention even today, where I actually dealt with a salary issue at a previous university where truck drivers who worked for the university made more than nurses because in the literature it said that they were breadwinners. And nurses had college degrees and truck drivers didn't. And I was just like, there's something wrong here. And so we've gone back and done our own gender-specific unit-level analysis all the way down to every rank, every position, every department. And we found very little gender explanation for variances in salaries. And when we did see some, we made corrections in those variances. Now what you're talking about are individual people in individual units, and we're open to looking at all of that. The case has to be made on a market or performance basis, and there certainly are ways to fix those things, and so we're open to that.
Thank you very much. How about we visit Polytechnic campus? Do you all have a question for us?
President Crow, I have a question regarding the organizational habits. The success of many organizations, they depend on a lot of different keystone habits that the members of the organizations would have, and that often is correlated with the success of the organization as a whole. So is there any types of organizational habits that you would like to see in the faculty of our university that would further advance the success of this institution?
There is one dominant organizational habit that I wish we could get more uniformly into faculty's thinking, and that is to focus on student success and retention. So every student that we admit, we believe, based on their record, should be able to graduate from the institution. Just process that. Yet after 6 years, some significant percentage have still not graduated. Now, what that means then is that the faculty, this is really hard because of the scale of the institution and the complexity of the institution. That means that every unit should have its own retention objectives. Every unit should be working with faculty energy and working with academic support staff, working with student affairs support staff. There are, units don't have, with a few exceptions, units don't have millions of majors. They have a smaller cross-section of the student body. And then if you then reduce those down to first-time, full-time freshmen and transfer students, it's even a smaller group. And so we believe that the faculty should have sufficient energy and drive, although it's very hard, to engage these students. Now, some of them come from families where or situations where they've never met anybody like you before. Ever. It's very intimidating. And so how we overcome that, if there was to be, as you call it, an organizational habit, the habit would be to focus massive energy on the success of our students at all levels of the institution. So I will tell you that I have stopped now over 16 years, probably on the order of low hundreds of times, to talk to a student that appears to be in distress. physical distress, emotional distress. 90% of the time, the person was in distress, and the person took my help. 90% of the time. Then they don't know who I am. I don't tell them who I am. I just tell them, I work here. What do you need? It looks like you're really hurting. It looks like something's really going on. How can I be helpful? And the results of that, as we've tracked some of those students, have been really, really... Now imagine if everybody in the organization, every time they saw a student in distress, someone was reaching out to them. Eventually they'd get sick of so many people trying to help them. Well, who's going to get sick of that? Nobody. And so organizational habit, focus on student success.
Fantastic, thank you. How about Wes? Do you have a question for President Crow?
Yes, our faculty has one question. So reading what's out there in the specialized or not so specialized literature, some colleagues fear that there may be another economic slowdown or maybe even a recession around the corner in a couple of years, in a few years. And so the question is, what is ASU's strategy to withstand another recession whenever it happens to hit?
Well, here's one thing I'm sure of. There will be another recession at some point. There will be economic changes. I'm certain of that. There will be ups and downs. I'm certain of that. And the strategy that we have built into our institution is to basically outperform, outthink, outwork, and out-innovate everyone else, which has put us into a position where we've been able to weather these uncertainties better than others. You'll see soon the enrollment shifts at some of our competing institutions not so significant. And so what that means then is in the middle of what's perceived to be enrollment decline or not so many high school seniors going on to college, we have massive enrollment increases. Why is that? Because we have something that these students want. We know how to market it to them. We know how to engage them. We know how to engage their families. And so, I mean, our experience in the last recession, the Great Recession in 2008, 9, and 10, was to make dramatic changes in the structure of the institution, to weather that by moving in new directions, to accelerate new initiatives that could position us by the end of the recession to have certain kinds of advantages. And so if we enter into another significant economic slowdown short of, you know, the fall of Rome in 476, I mean, so if we somehow don't have to encounter that, we believe that we're agile and adaptable. Now, the risk that we have within the structure of the institution goes to our very significant reliance on market performance, competing against other colleges to attract students here. So we did see a decline in international students from China. We saw a decline in international students from Kuwait. We saw an increase in international students from a few countries. So we're operating at this level of international students where we used to be at this level. So a slight perturbation up here is we're not concerned about that yet. But if there was to be a dramatic change in that, but without ways to replace that revenue, that is a risk that the institution is subject to. And so we're trying new techniques to find the right students. We're advancing with an understanding of that, and we're also working on managing our financial risk. Now, our financial risk is complicated by the fact that we're doing many things to advance new initiatives, all of which cost resources. So we're trying to make certain as we advance against new initiatives that we're not advancing against new initiatives that can't be altered if they didn't have to be, meaning there are things you must spend no matter what. There's things that you might spend if you have a chance. There's some things that you might spend if you have a few extra shekels here or there. We're making certain that those last two categories are flexible, allowing us for the things we absolutely have to have those. And I think right now we're managing that well. If things got dramatically altered through national crisis or international crisis, what I can tell you is that I think that we're probably more adaptable than other institutions for lots of different reasons, and that we would find our way through it. So that's my best answer. Maybe there's one more question, I think.
Yeah, if you have time, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation. With all this innovation, can you cool it down here in Tempe.
So, well, the answer is we're working on the night. In fact, I thought I saw Chuck Redmond was here. Was he here?
That wasn't really my question.
No, but
yeah.
Chuck Redmond is, and others are leading a project on lowering the nighttime heat
Good,
index.
good,
Yeah.
okay. So we had some questions, but we'll just give you one. And this is, you touched a little bit on this. I had read that Pew research as well about the perception of universities by Republicans and Democrats and so on. But I have to read this quote from Attorney General Sessions, who just said in July that universities are creating a generation of sanctimonious, sensitive, supercilious snowflakes, which just shocked me that Sessions was such a terrific alliterator. But
with the letter S.
Yes. Yes, well, he's got skills we didn't know about.
Sanctimonious, supercilious snowflakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. But none of us would recognize that, right? I mean, that's really not what we're doing here at all. I mean, it's so far from what we're doing. But I think that makes me nervous that kind of perception's out there about universities and colleges. And what I want to, ask you, you talk about like changing the perception of where we are ranked in terms of all these things. How do we get the public in Arizona, we still are an Arizona university serving this community, and get this community and this state to understand what in fact we're doing, which is so far from that? So
there's a political ideological debate that the Attorney General might have been participating in with his 3S statement about supercilious, sanctimonious students and so forth. That debate is actually not attached to certain elements of reality. And so what I mean by that is I haven't met anyone yet in any social class, and I try to talk to everybody, everywhere, all the time, constantly, who does not want their child or their grandchild to be educated. I've not met that person. Immigrants fresh into the country, documented, undocumented, they want their child, their grandchild to be educated. And occasionally you'll meet some smart aleck who will say, well, my kid doesn't really need to go to college, and I'm going to urge them to start up companies and so forth and so on. I'm saying, well, yeah, you're rich. You're going to back that kid up and give him some money, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a few, call that a fraction of 1/10%. Now, those people get lots of attention, and the Attorney General's comments get lots of attention. And there's lots of people who I think what we're really faced with is that I read his comments as there's a little brokenheartedness out there. We haven't done everything that we could do to be of greatest service to everybody. And there's a lot of people who are feeling left out. So if you are white in the United States with a high school diploma only, and you're a woman, your lifespan went down last year. If you don't have a high school diploma, there's 25% fewer jobs than there were in 2007. If you didn't have a chance to be blessed enough to go to a full immersive college or university at age 18, you may not be as easily adjustable to all of the economic changes that we're facing. And what are we doing about that? Well, it turns out that we're still driving up highly selective elite colleges with no growth, no expansion, et cetera, et cetera. So last year, Congress almost taxed the tuition benefit for graduate assistants. We used our political energy to fight against that valiantly. We were a part of the team that helped win that not being the case. But that was only one of about 40 arrows that were shot at us from English longbows at the same time. One of them didn't really affect us because we only have a few $1,000s per student from our endowment. But if you had more than $500,000 of endowment payout or endowment per student, you now have a tax on your endowment. That's unbelievable. All those are symbols of not contempt. I think it's broken heart. why aren't you helping me? Why aren't you helping my family more? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. There are contemptuous individuals filled with contempt for us. But most of them, they don't even have hearts. I mean, they don't think that way. I'm serious. They're like a different kind of person. And so I'm not worried about those comments. I don't know about his comments specifically. I don't know what the driver is for him on those things. But what I know is that we haven't done a good enough job as a sector, and we haven't done a good enough job as a public university subsector, and we haven't done a good enough job as ASU to let everybody know that we are there for them, for their children, for their grandchildren, for the success of the community. We seem a little odd sometimes. So individual faculty members exercising their full rights of free speech and so forth and so on, they say things from time to time around the country. We had a case at Fresno State not too long ago that are really, really, really hard to deal with on a political level. And so I'm not overly worried about that. When you start running into people who tell you, I'm not sending my kid to college under any circumstance, I refuse to have my kid graduate from high school, now we've got a problem. Now, we do have a problem in some subsections of our society. African American males' attendance at universities is going down. Well, why is that? We need to work on that. We need to focus on that. And so what we're getting is a lot of ideological rhetoric headed our way. I won't go into this too deeply, but if you hear over and over and over and over and over that college-educated people think X, and you happen to be listening to the ideological rhetoric of people that think Y, and you think that the correlation or the causality is that they think X because they're college graduated, you might think we need fewer of those people. And I'm not talking about who you vote for. I'm talking about how you view the world. So that gap is expanding. So anyway, I'm not too worried about that. But so I think, where did Donna go? Oh, I think I think we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a great semester, and thanks for spending your afternoon with us. Appreciate your time. Take care.